And the second hour, Carlo Broussard will be here, but we'll also have two contestants with us because we're going to do the game show, big game show, second hour. And I wrote the questions, so I think they're really good. We'll have to see. This hour, our good friend Joe Heschmeyer is here with us, and we're going to talk about the theological legacy, the theology of Pope John Paul II. Hello, Joe.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. Why today? Why do we want to talk about Pope John Paul II today?
Today is his feast day. Actually, it's a really provident timing. One of Anna, my wife's friends, just came in town and brought a JP2 blanket for our new baby and didn't even realize when she gave it to him that it was John Paul II's feast day.
Oh,
so
that's
happy
really
feast day
nice.
to JP2.
Not only that, I'm really happy to hear they're making JP2 baby blankets.
No. She had this specially designed. Like it's way cooler than that.
Whoa!
I'll share pictures on Facebook. It's really
okay.
good.
All right. So John Paul, the longest serving pope of the modern era. I suppose that might not entirely be true because you might consider the 19th century the modern era. But
Right.
and there was I think it was Pio IX, wasn't it? That was pope forever. I mean, for like half of.
I think that was Leo the 13th.
Oh, was it?
No,
Oh.
you're right. It was Pio. No.
Yeah.
1846 to 1846 to 1878. I just checked.
That's that's covering some territory there. But John Paul the same. But then nobody calls Pope Pius the Great. They call John Paul the Great. Does that offend your sensibilities at all that this man of our era is called the Great? Where you got a Gregory the Great. You don't get too many the Greats.
No, it's more like because it's Gregory, it's Leo, it's John Paul II, and then Nicholas is the fourth one who's called the Great, and he's kind of a dark horse. No one thinks of him today, but once upon a time, people thought a great deal of him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't offend my sensibilities at all. I think JP2's legacy in terms of guiding the church, but especially in terms of philosophy and theology, has been massive. And it's hard to conceptualize kind of the field of Catholic theology before and after him, and how different kind of I think his lasting legacy in areas like theology of the body and other areas has been. Yeah. And I think it will continue to be. I think 100 years from now, it'll still matter, kind of what he said, what he taught, in a way that isn't always true of papal actions.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to hang up on you if you said that bothered you that he was called the Great. One of the things that everyone who gets the Great after their name shares in common is that the times they lived in were a mess. So he did have a lot of messes to clean up when he became Pope.
Yeah, I mean, you've got messes inside the church, but you also have the external threats the church is facing. So, in the past, it might have been like the Mongols or the Huns. Well, here it was communism. And, anyone familiar with John Paul II's life knows that he grew up, was pretty quickly an orphan, then dealt with Nazis, then dealt with communists. And Poland had this very long and very tragic history of oppression, and he lived through a good deal of that. And so he came to the papacy with a real realism, I guess I would say, a sense of the awfulness of communism. And I think he was really instrumental in mobilizing the spiritual forces of the church to stand up to the horrors of what he'd seen in the Eastern Bloc.
It strikes me, however, that today one of the things that I think a lot of kind of Catholic apologists and apologetic type institutions didn't expect, but and maybe you did, Joe. I don't know. I'm not. Maybe you're the exception here, but just how much in the 2020s we would be defending the Second Vatican Council, where I literally have young people come up to me after a talk. They're 19, 20 years old, and they go, "What do you think of the Second Vatican Council? Was it good or bad?" And that kind of reevaluation that's going on about the Second Vatican Council, I think it also affects the people's understanding of Pope John Paul II. I think people are much more willing to be critical of him now, or there's just much more criticism of him now than there was 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah, I think you have a few things. One, I mean, you have the whole pastoral dimension. He was not the best at choosing clerics. He was not the best at choosing bishops and choosing cardinals. And I think time has not always been on his side in terms of some of his choices. Cardinal McCarrick was obviously a disaster. There are many others who, might be more controversial for me to name publicly. But, a lot of, when you look at bad actors in the church who are maybe voices for bad ideas, a lot of them kind of got to where they were because, a papal nuncio suggested them to John Paul II and he gave the okay. That's a complicated history. And I think because of it, justifiably, people have voiced a lot of criticisms.
Yeah, that's one something that over time shows itself more and more.
Exactly. At the time, it's hard to know if this kind of rising star is good or bad. Right. And he backed a lot of bad horses, so to speak. But the other thing is, so from his name, right? So he's John Paul II. So let's just break that down. Well, John Paul I was his immediate predecessor. He only reigned for 33 days, from August 22nd to September 28th of 1978. And he took the name John Paul in honor of Pope John XXIII, who began the Second Vatican Council, and Paul VI, who concluded it. So he wanted his pontificate to be understood as sort of that of the Pope who would implement Vatican II. But then he dies 33 days later, and that task falls to Karol Wojtyła, who takes up the mantle symbolically by taking the name John Paul for himself. That he kind of understands his own role as being the one who's going to be in charge of implementing this big, transformative, messy kind of council.
It was a task he was up to, though. But things that were controversial at the beginning of his papacy, in many cases, were resolved by the end of the papacy. Certainly not everything. But what would you say would be, and I do want people to feel free to call and talk with Joe about the theological legacy, the theology. And we're kind of sticking to the theology that because you just can't. I mean, he is one of the towering figures of our age or any age. And so you can't get to all the aspects. So we thought we'd talk about the theology today. If you want to talk about that, 888-318-7884. You don't have to be a theologian. If you just want to talk about, I didn't agree with him on this or I loved him because of that, 888-318-7884. But now I totally forgot my question. Do you know where I was going, Joe?
I think you were going to ask about major contributions he made theologically.
Oh, yeah, the major themes. The major themes. That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, thank you. You're a good mind reader.
You set it up pretty well. So I think major themes for him, one is really stressing Marian devotion. Now, to Catholics who are, my age or younger, it might seem like kind of a no-brainer that Catholics, of course, we're really into Mary. We love Mary. But at the time, there are stories of seminaries actively discouraging seminarians from praying the rosary, right, and viewing that as just an obstacle to ecumenism, viewing that as an outdated tradition. And JP2, for all of his brilliance, has the simple, humble faith of a Polish layman. This is how he grew up. This is, he had this love of Mary. That love is deepened and not eradicated with his love of philosophy and theology. And so he writes a whole lot about Mary. He writes a whole lot about the rosary. And that's an important fight that he's taking. It's easy to take those and just think, oh, this is just devotional. He's just saying, say your prayers, kids. But no, understand that this was an actual fight, that there were people in the church who thought we're talking about Mary too much, and that he's really going to bat to say, no, it's important as Catholics we understand the role of Mary theologically, and that we have this constant recourse to her spiritually. That's a big fight. That's a really important fight, and he spends a lot of time and effort on it. Second, a major theme is that of ecumenism, that he wasn't just saying, well, we're going to stick with the way we've always done things and forget about you guys to Protestants or to the rest of the world. That there's this real sense in which I think he understood, especially as someone who grew up in Poland, that Christians everywhere, and even in a certain sense, religious people everywhere, have to stand up against the forces of secularism, atheism, communism, and the rest. That there really was a fight that Catholics were part of, but we had allies in that fight among people that we'd had some pretty serious disagreements in the past, people with whom we still have serious disagreements. Catholics and Protestants, we disagree on a lot of important things. But if someone comes along and says Jesus isn't Lord, we need to put those things aside for a second and say, yes, he is. And we agree on that. That sort of thing. So you see a lot on ecumenism. He also had some really important contributions on human sexuality and related stuff. The so-called theology of the body is a masterful unpacking of Genesis 1-3 and a masterful kind of vision of the human person. And then a fourth area I would point out. Well, I'm going to give 5. So a fourth would be the Eucharist. He has a tremendous love of the Eucharist. His very last encyclical, Ecclesia de Eucharistia, the Church of the Eucharist, does a lot in focusing on the Eucharist and its role in the life of the Church. And then finally, I think an area that we don't talk about him enough is that he really does great work on the theology of suffering. That he has this document called Salvifici Doloris, where he just looks at what's the point of human suffering. Now, this is someone who, as I've already mentioned, experienced tremendous suffering at the loss of his parents, but also the kind of broader suffering of seeing everyone around. He had a Jewish best friend growing up at a time when things were not going well for the Jews in Poland and in Europe more broadly.
How you for understatement there, Joe?
Yes.
At a time when things were not going well.
Yes, I mean, I don't want to spoil Schindler's List or anything for anyone who hasn't watched 1,000 movies.
In other words, during the Holocaust.
Yes, during the Holocaust, and even I even mean before that.
Okay.
Things were going very badly. That led up to. It isn't like the Holocaust came out of nowhere. It's like there was some very fervent anti-Jewish sentiment, often from Christians, often from Catholics specifically, in places like Poland and places like Germany, throughout Europe, that reaches a horrible kind of crescendo. He sees the worst chapter of that directly, like up close.
Right.
And then afterwards, sees the horrors of communism, that they were in many ways out of the frying pan and into the fires. And so he sees all of that and is able to not lose his faith in that, but is able to search in a more meaningful way to say, why does suffering exist? What is this all about? And he has some pretty profound answers. I would really recommend Salvifici Doloris to anyone who may be grappling with that. Now, there's a lot of other stuff that he does. I could have mentioned 5 other major theological areas. He's called the Great for a reason. But I think that's a good maybe starting place. Our
number is 888-318-7884. You don't have to agree with us on Pope John Paul II. You don't have to be Catholic even to call. We're talking about the theology of Pope John Paul II this hour on his feast day. The number 888-318-7884. You're welcome to bring a comment today, or if you've got a question is welcome as well. 888-318-7884. Right back with more Joe Heschmeyer on John Paul the Great.
Catch Catholic Answers live anytime at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Imagine a career bringing the eternal word to millions around the globe. At EWTN, we're committed to spreading the gospel from a Catholic perspective, touching millions via television, radio, publishing, and the internet. Right now, EWTN is looking for qualified people to fill a number of exciting positions. Make a difference using your God-given talent. Visit EWTN.com/employment today. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett. Joe Heschmeyer is our guest today. And Joe's talking about the theology of John Paul II. If you, this is his feast day, and why does he have a feast day? Because he's a saint. I don't even know if we mentioned that. That's pretty good when you're such an impressive guy that it takes till segment 2 to get around to mentioning that you're a saint. You can call with your questions or comments about the theology of Pope John Paul II. 888-318-7884. You're welcome if you agree with us. You're welcome if you disagree. 888-318-7884. If I may, Joe, before I go to the calls, you gave us 5 areas where he was tremendously influential as a theologian. I wonder if you could just kind of give us the personal for you. What do you find? Because I know this to be the case, that you find him to be a very attractive and person theologically. For you personally, what draws you to the theology of Pope John Paul II?
So at different stages in my life, it's been different aspects. I think he took a strong stand against some of the more, shall we say, modernist forces in the church and stood up to them. I think his nuanced treatment of liberation theology was really good and really important. In college, that was really important for me. Liberation theology, to oversimplify things a little bit, is an attempt to combine the gospel with Marxism. And as like a young college student, it seemed like, well, good, like people are really caring about the poor. But there's an instruction on a theology of liberation that Cardinal Ratzinger wrote under the guidance of John Paul II that gives a good kind of nuanced critique, maybe even I might say takedown of some of the theological errors. So that was really important at one point in my life. Veritatis Splendor, where he talks about the splendor of the truth and stands up to certain really widespread theological errors in Catholic theology. That was really important. Fides et Ratio, where he just defends the idea that faith and reason belong together. That was really helpful for me in kind of getting through some how do we make sense of these two things? This notion that faith and reason are the two wings on which the human spirit rises is a really important idea. Embedded in there too, and actually in the very first section, I think even the first paragraph, is this idea that we only come to know ourselves by coming to know God. And that's been a major theme for me personally and in some of the stuff that I've written. I have the book, Who Am I, Lord? Finding Your Identity in Christ. It's very much built on that kind of idea. And then finally, like he has what's called a meditation on givenness. And it's this idea that men and women are made for each other, even outside the specific context of marriage. And so he says, even like as a priest, there may be some role that you have in kind of helping a woman to recognize her own unique feminine beauty and genius. And what he's describing there, this sexed but not sexual interaction, is really beautiful and profound. And I would even say very daring for a Catholic priest, much less a pope, to kind of publicly kind of call for, because you can see 1,000 ways it could go wrong. But it's also really important in sort of reclaiming something about men and women as people. And certainly as a father to a daughter, the way that I'm called to praise my daughter's beauty and femininity in a different way than my wife can is really just like profound. And I think it's constantly being unpacked.
We're talking about the theology of Pope John Paul II. Lots of folks on the line. You want to get to anything else before we go to calls, or shall we go to calls?
No, let's go to calls.
It's the feast day of Saint Pope. This is another thing that he left us with. I mean, you have to say a lot of words to identify him now. Pope John Paul II, the Great Saint, or Saint John Paul, Pope II, Great. It's very hard. That's why I think so many people just say JP2, which I find you young whippersnappers saying JP2 so disrespectful. But I mean, he did put us in that position by. Is that what it says behind you, JP2?
Yeah, my license plate literally says JP2. So, but the other license plate we have says Wojtyła. So I'm not sure if you find one more or less respectful.
All right, let's go to Vela in New Jersey, listening to EWTN on channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio. Vela, thank you so much for your call. Go ahead with your comment or question for Joe.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I just wanted to share an experience I had with St. John Paul II because it was, I was at the time, this is an experience I had 2 weeks after he passed away. I had a miscarriage, and That had been in February. And I was just praying. I was not back in the church. I was Catholic, but not back in the church. And I pray. And somehow, 2 weeks after he passed away, in the dream, this is me in the dream, I just saw his image just come to me and just say, you're going to have a child. I just remember this, and this is 15 years ago. 16, because my daughter's 15, so it's 16.
Yeah.
And I conceived my daughter the following week, the 3rd week in April.
Isn't that a beautiful story, Bella? That's a beautiful story.
My daughter's 15. She was born in January 18. And throughout my pregnancy, they say, well, she's Down syndrome, she's this, she's that. And I said, no. She doesn't have anything, because a saint would not come to me and tell me that I was going to have a child. So, and even today, right now, my daughter's having his struggles with LGBT and everything, and I said, that's okay. You know why? Because a saint said she was going to be here. There's a reason why. And I tell my daughter the story. I said, I don't care what you're going through. You'll become a force in this church. And what you're going through right now is to prepare you for the trouble, the things that can come upon you. Yeah. That's okay. Don't worry. You have a powerful saint.
I like that last part. Bella, thanks. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's like everything about that was just classic Catholic mom, down to the I. I think every mom listening in hopefully resonated with that. But no, there's something really beautiful about that, and something so specific to John Paul II. You know, he has the encyclical Evangelium Vitae, which is on the gospel of life. And he begins it by saying that the gospel of life is at the heart of Jesus' message. Lovingly received day after day by the church, it is to be preached with dauntless fidelity as good news to the people of every age and culture. And he points out that, like, the Christian message begins with the good news of the birth of a baby. And so it's very fitting that it was John Paul II who appeared to you in a dream and said, you're going to have a baby, because that's the thing that he got, is like this central part of Christianity, that we're living in this world in which babies are not always received as good news. That, like, to hear you're going to be pregnant, or you are pregnant, you're going to have a baby, is not something people always rejoice at. But that there's this profound way in which Christianity reveals that every child is good news, because human life is worth fighting for, it's worth defending. There is what he calls the incomparable worth of the human person, that God wants you as you, that you're created for your own sake, and that therefore, like, we should join in with the rest of creation in rejoicing that you exist. It's why, like, birthdays are actually really good news. I was talking with a former Jehovah's Witness recently who didn't get why birthdays existed, thought they were too kind of narcissistic. But no, a birthday is a yes to reality. It's a yes to existence. It's a yes to creation. And in that way, it really, properly understood, is praise of God and the goodness for which he is, filled the world.
I love praising God by eating cake, too. It's a great combination. Bella, thanks very, very much. I'm sure there are many, many people who have similar stories about John Paul. The stories that people will tell about the time that they met him, or what their interactions were like when he was on this earth, are extraordinary. He had a really kind of clever sense of humor, is the sense that I get. So many people that met him, there was a funny little line or something that they remember from him, which is a very humanizing thing. I think he humanized the moments that people had encounters with him. Bella, again, thanks very, very much. In
terms of those humanizing moments, if I may share one, there was I don't know if it was a bishop or a priest of the Diocese of Bismarck, had multiple times met Pope John Paul II, and said every time he met him and said he was from Bismarck, JP2 would kind of go, Otto von Bismarck, he's not a good man for the church. And finally, this priest had heard this enough times and just said, you said that last time, Holy Father, and kind of like snapped on behalf of his diocese. I thought that was just such a funny story of the humanity of kind of both people involved.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Ethan in Cincinnati, you're up next. Ethan, watching on YouTube, go ahead with your question or comment for Joe about John Paul II.
So my thoughts are, hello. Hello, Joe Heschmeyer. God bless,
Hi.
man. And Psych Helen.
Me too, thank you.
One thing I would like to say is, like, how likely do you think it will be in the future that John Paul II will be declared a doctor of the church?
Ooh. Okay, so for those who don't know what a doctor of the church is, we just had the announcement that there is a newly about to be named doctor of the church, St. Irenaeus of Lyon. And doctor here does not mean like medical doctor. It's the original sense of the word doctor, which meant teacher. So the doctors of the church are the handful of great saints who were particularly important in presenting the faith in some way or teaching it in some way where they maybe gave a new perspective or offered some new insight. The big ones are people like Augustine, but you also have later people like Aquinas, and even some more recent ones. Therese of Lisieux is a great example of a more modern doctor of the church. And I think he richly deserves the title. In a lot of ways, like there's some brilliant theologian saints, but with things like theology of the body, you see a particular like John Paul II angle through which he approaches theology and reality that has been really influential. And those are kind of the hallmarks of a doctor. Someone who's very holy and gives us a helpful new way of looking at what we've always believed.
All right, Ethan, thanks very much. Like he needs another title. We'll be right back with more on Pope John Paul II and his feast day.
Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com. Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest is Joe Heschmeyer. Second hour, hey, we're going to do the game show. No, I can't say what I was about to say. I was going to give away a little bit about what the game show is about, but I can't do that. That would be wrong. But Carlo Broussard's going to be here, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you can test yourself. You can test the kids. You can even test Grandma and Grandpa. The whole family can get together and take the game show quiz with us via the radio waves. Joe, we're talking a bit about Pope John Paul II today on his feast day. The reason he has a feast day is he is a saint of the Catholic Church, Santo Subito. Do you know what that means? I know I'm very advanced in my Italian, but I don't know if you know.
It's something the crowds were chanting after he died. They were in Rome chanting for his sainthood to happen, right away. It was
make him a saint now.
Urging the church. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
which basically happened. I mean, it's an incredible turnaround time for him to be declared a saint that quickly. Not the fastest. I think that goes to Saint Peter Martyr, but it was one of the fastest.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not really in the let's canonize people 5 years after they're dead camp. This is something that, but I mean, come on. Pope John Paul.
I think it was providential, honestly.
Do you?
Because there have been a lot of controversies about him after the fact.
Oh, I see.
And so to be able to have the framework to know infallibly, for all of the mistakes he made, this man is a great saint in heaven.
Yeah.
It helps us be able to have an adult conversation about his shortcomings and faults
yeah.
without it being like, one extreme or the other. Either he made no mistakes or because he made mistakes, he's not in heaven.
Right.
Which is sometimes the kind of Pollyannish and incorrect view of saints that we can take.
Yeah, if you don't get stuff wrong, I mean, if getting stuff wrong keeps you out of heaven, the only Jesus and Mary are there. Nobody, everybody else gets stuff wrong. I mean, and sometimes in grave, we have wonderful saints who we would not approve of some of their behavior today because the moral calculations are different.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, saints who made tremendous mistakes. Even reading the lives of the church fathers, some of the machinations, even kind of the politics, so to speak, and especially the Eastern Church, it was messy sometimes. And so they were in situations where it was like, well, I don't know if that was the right decision, but I don't want to be held up by that same kind of standard myself. I mean, JP2 was a pope for like 26 years. Do you want someone to comb through the last 26 years of your life and say, well, here are all the mistakes that you made that you never publicly apologized for? No one could pass that threshold, excluding, members of the Holy Family.
Right. Yeah. I would prefer the last 26 to the first 26 if it comes to anybody has to do an evaluation. At least I'm hoping. I mean, I don't know all that will happen in the last 26, but I feel like some improvements have been made.
I see. My problem is a lot of my last 26 overlaps with my first 26. So I'm still young enough that my last 26 are
not me.
A little hairier.
Let's go to Daphne in Morgantown, West Virginia, listening on EWTN. Daphne, we're happy to have you. You want to talk about Pope John Paul II?
I do. Just wanted to share a little story that almost 14 years ago, I was expecting my first child at the age of 43. And, of course, I was an older mom and, very concerned about the safety of the baby and several other things. And I asked St. John Paul II to bless and protect her and, let her do great things for our Lord. And as a result of that, I delivered a wonderful daughter named Anna, who's now in middle school and almost 14 years old. And today I went to Mass after work, which usually I don't have the opportunity to do, and to pray for her because she's having some middle school growing pain kind of things going on, and to pray for her and to pray for me as her mother, and found that it was St. John Paul II's feast day, which I thought was so profound. And, when y'all were talking about how St. John Paul had the devotion to the Blessed Mother, it reminded me that when Anna was very young, like preschool age, we were talking about the Blessed Mother, and she said, Mama, I know the Blessed Mother. And I said, that's awesome. And she said, no, really, I know the Blessed Mother, in her, whatever word she used for that age. And I said, oh, and she said, yes, she was with me. And I said, where was she with you, Anna? And she said, in your tummy. And I did have, actually a dangerous, labor situation where I had to have an emergency C-section, and my mom and I were praying the rosary before that. So I wondered, I was like, well, maybe.
Yeah, it all sounds so consistent with St. John Paul II, too. I mean, the Marian devotion and the utter commitment in love to the care for the unborn. What do you think, Joe?
Well, I think those two things that you just highlighted are exactly right and belong together. Occasionally you'll find Catholics who call themselves pro-choice. And besides just being against the teachings of the church, it also goes so much against what Scripture lays out. Like the first person to really praise Jesus is unborn John the Baptist in the womb of Elizabeth. When the Virgin Mary goes in the visitation in Luke 1, Jesus is still under a month old at this point. It says she arises and goes with haste. And meanwhile, John is 6 months older, but he's still in the second or maybe early third trimester of pregnancy. That there is this recognition that from the earliest moments, there is life in the womb, and it's human life, and it is human life worth rejoicing in. Now, obviously, that's true in a special way when it's the unborn Jesus Christ. But the point that John Paul II makes is this is true of all human life, that every unborn child is worth rejoicing over. He says, I mentioned Evangelium Vitae earlier. In paragraph 5 of that, he talks about how there exists a great multitude of weak and defenseless human beings, unborn children in particular, whose fundamental right to life is being trampled upon. And his point is that just as the church has to stand up for example, laborers and immigrants and all of these other groups who are downtrodden, who are oppressed, no less do we need to stand up against this new form of social injustice that's just categorized this whole class of human beings as being less than fully human. That every time that happens, it's an affront to humanity, but it's also an affront to the gospel. And so John Paul II stands strong on that. And so you see that theological profundity combined with a sort of toughness that he has as Pope, combined with a sort of gentleness and just a very particular love for babies and the unborn and for the Virgin Mary. And I think that comes out really beautifully. And now 2 stories of how he's kind of interceded for these unborn children.
Yeah, if I'm learning anything from today's show, it's that pregnant women should pray to John Paul II because he seems to be very helpful, at least 2 out of our 3 calls so far. Let's go to more phone calls. Daphne, God bless you. Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful story. Let's go to Walt in Philly, listening on TuneIn Radio. Walt, you there with us?
I am.
All right, go ahead.
I think he was a very good pope overall. And we actually have a son named John Paul. We named after him. But I think the meetings at Assisi are sort of very problematic in that in a poorly catechized Catholic culture after Vatican Council II, can't blame the council. It's just the way it was, the way they so-called implemented it. It led to religious indifferentism. Doesn't matter what religion you are as long as you believe in God. That kind of thing. So I think that's one of the main difficulties that young people who are serious about their faith, like especially my own sons, say, well, that was really a mistake that he did that because it just made people think that it doesn't matter what religion you are as long as you believe in something.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it was a major, a really lamentable misstep. So for those who aren't familiar, John Paul II invited world religious leaders to come to Assisi, which is, where St. Francis of Assisi starts the Franciscans and has this reputation of being a real city of peace. The Franciscans have a giant church there that has Pax, Latin for peace, as like the hedge garden. It's a beautiful, very serene kind of environment. And he gathered them all together to pray for peace, for world peace, which is not a bad thing, but they were praying in these Catholic churches. So you had these, sometimes like pagan worship ceremonies that are questionable, whether they're worshiping God or demons or other. In Catholic churches. And so there is an aspect of both religious indifferentism. I might even go further and say it kind of invites desecration of churches, even if that's not the goal. Like, it's good to say, hey, pray for me to other people. It's best, of course, with other Christians, but we don't deny the possibility that someone who doesn't have a full understanding of the gospel might still have prayers that are very good and are heard by God, even if the person doesn't know how to address him properly. And praying for world peace is a really good thing. There's a tremendous spiritual energy being mobilized here to fight for peace at a time when things like nuclear war seemed like a very real possibility. So I get the good intention behind it. And I think that there were ways that it could have been done that wouldn't have led to religious indifferentism and wouldn't have led to kind of the risk of, desecration of churches. I think the way it was done was very much a mistake. And I think even Cardinal Ratzinger made it pretty clear afterwards that he thought this was not the Pope's finest moment, that he could have done a lot of things differently. And I think it wouldn't be something that'd be repeated in the same way. In fact, after the first one, they made some big changes to kind of how they approached these sort of interreligious gatherings.
What do you think, Walt?
Yeah, I think that's good. Unfortunately, with the Amazon Synod, we sort of had a repeat of that kind of stuff. So let's hope and pray that our popes get a little more smarter about that stuff, because we have a very poorly catechized. I'm a catechist. We have a very poorly catechized Catholic population who, from the 50s on down, and they just don't know their faith, and it just leads to confusion, religious indifferentism, syncretism, and all those other things that are contrary to authentic evangelization.
Walt, thanks. I have to go to the break, Joe. But I would say that while I do not at all deny the poverty of catechesis, you know who's not poorly catechized? People who listen to Catholic radio. Like, really, seriously. I think it's making up for a long period of poor catechesis. The Catholic radio and some of the other Catholic media that have grown up are providing an antidote to some of that. And you know what? Catholic radio in the United States, you know when it exploded? Right after John Paul II came to Denver, and he said to the Catholics there, one of the things he said was, you're not using the media properly to evangelize. And then the next year, 1997, a bunch of Catholic radio stations opened, and they've been opening more every year since. So not a lot of people know that story. We got to take a break, though. We'll be right back with more with Joe Heschmeyer on the theology of Pope John Paul II.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley, the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
I'm Kimberly Hahn, and my new show, Beloved and Blessed, is now on EWTN Radio. Every week, I share scripture and my personal experience to speak to the desires and strengths of all women, so that each of us can better live out our vocations as daughters of God. Tune in to find inspiration, hope, and strength in each episode.
Don't miss Beloved and Blessed with Kimberly Hahn, Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, only on EWTN Radio.
A lot of great calls this hour on the feast of Pope John Paul II. We're talking about the theology of Pope John Paul II, and as much as they are great calls, only one call really on the theology of Pope John Paul II, and it's quite critical of his theology. That is the decision to engage in that first big prayer for peace in Assisi. It did have, while I don't disagree with your analysis, Joe, it also did have good qualities to it. I mean, there was a sense that the presentation of the Catholic Church as the face of desiring peace in a time where they're just, as you said, much like our day, I think people have forgotten this, but even more so in a more pressing way, there was a daily fear of nuclear war. It wasn't a total failure.
No, it wasn't. And I think you're highlighting something really important that is worth kind of chewing on. Like, when the religions of the world want to be united on anything, even as simple as like peace is good and worth fighting for, who has to spearhead it? Well, the Catholic Church. Likewise, when we talk about like ecumenical dialogue, which is to say like between Christian churches and denominations, you see this real sense that if there's a single person who can speak on behalf of Christianity alive today, it's the Pope. That even Protestants kind of get that in a way that Catholics often don't. That even, non-Catholics, Orthodox, non-denominational, whatever, that there's often this sense that like the Catholic Church in general, and the Pope in particular, has this unique sort of leadership among Christians, particularly, even among religious people. That "What if God was one of us" song, Jesus goes back to heaven, no one calls him on the phone except maybe the Pope down in Rome. There's even
one
people
guy
who aren't religious
is still
at all.
interested in Jesus. It's the Pope.
Right.
Yeah.
And he just got a call. He can call him directly. That sort of idea, maybe we take that for granted as Catholics, but there's actually something very profound about that. And maybe it would make more sense to imagine for a minute the tables were turned, and that when everyone wanted to talk about religion around the world, they always thought of Buddhism or Islam or whatever. They always thought of, some important leader within those religions. But they don't, and I would venture that most people couldn't name, a prominent Sunni or Shia or Buddhist, right. Whereas even non-Christians know who the head of the Catholic Church is. They know who the Pope is, not just in historically Christian countries like the U.S., but around the world. And that's an important way in which, in marshaling those interreligious dialogues and ecumenical stuff, the Pope is trying to use this authority. And it is an important reminder, if you take religion seriously, and in particular, if you take Christianity seriously, the Pope's a force to be contended with. You have to take him seriously as well.
Right, and he wasn't afraid at all of that contention. But what you just said reminds me of the what Lenny Bruce used to say. The comedian.
I think I know the line, actually.
He used to say,
there are many churches. There's only one, the church.
Yeah, when people say the church, everybody knows what they're talking about. Okay, so I do want to say something about his theology and ask you about it myself, and that is that. As great a theologian as he was, and often I found his writing a bit difficult and circular, and also, to add two more modifiers, difficult and circular. But he had this ability to also distill theology and theological concepts beautifully. And I want to give you an example of that. Cardinal Bernardin in Chicago came up with this idea of the seamless garment. And it's not a bad idea. It's not an evil idea. He's not an evil man for coming up with it. It's a pro-life idea. But it doesn't quite work because it tends towards a kind of leveling of all of the evils that can be committed against human dignity and human life as if they are all equal. And at the same time, roughly speaking, historically, Pope John Paul comes up with this phrase, the culture of life. And you don't hear much about the seamless garment anymore because it's obvious that the culture of life is the more it's every bit as pithy. It's every bit as it's all it is a slogan, but it's much more theologically prudent.
Yes, I think it neatly it captures the good the Cardinal Bernardin was trying to capture, and avoids the evils or the problems that his formulation had. Because his formulation, as you suggest, it's a continual, a seamless garment. So there's this sense that, workers' rights is a pro-life issue, euthanasia is a pro-life issue, the death penalty is a pro-life issue, abortion is a pro-life issue. And so in real practical terms, this meant that when voters would look at the landscape, they would say, well, no one meets all of these things perfectly that I can vote for. Or if there is someone, they're this obscure party no one's ever heard of. And so it led to this sort of kind of indifferentism. This idea, he's not great on workers' rights. This guy's not great on abortion, potato, with no sense that one of those things might be more morally grievous than the other. John Paul II manages to capture the importance of both issues, that we have to care about both. We have to care about all of these issues, and that they're not all equally important. They're not all equally grave. So there's a pretty big difference there. So I think, like you said, culture of life just captures something that the seamless garment doesn't.
Again, we're talking about Pope John Paul II. We're talking about his theological legacy, his great contribution as a theologian. I think you couldn't. It would be a bit remiss to talk about the theology of John Paul II without talking about the fact that he could spot theological talent when he saw it too. and that you know what whose name I'm about to give you?
Well, I assume you mean his successor.
Yeah, Pope Benedict XVI, who he never would let go home.
That successor. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
People are often like, why do you think Benedict resigned? And I partly it's just because no one could stop him this time.
Yeah,
he tried to resign he tried to resign as cardinal 3 times.
Yeah.
The guy he
it's
constantly had like a resignation letter ready, I think. And the Pope was just like, no, you can't leave. You can't go home. You have to stay in Italy.
Right. It's one of the great partnerships in the history of the Catholic faith.
It's seriously, because John Paul II has this movie star kind of charisma. He was an actor. He had this real charm to him and was very gentle and very loving and affirming. But as you said, he was not always the most succinct. He would wax poetic about things. He has that poetic sort of soul. Ratzinger would just kind of cut to the quick and say, here's why you're wrong, though. And so the two of them together, I think, were a lot more effective than either of them separately. And I would say, even in point of fact, I love Pope Benedict, but I think without having someone to balance him, a lot of people kind of wrote him off as being too curmudgeonly and just kind of ignored the brilliant things that he was saying.
So you're saying that John Paul II tempered Joseph Ratzinger in a way. Exactly. I think the two of them worked well together. And the liberation theology thing that I mentioned earlier, the instruction that he wrote as the head of the CDF, when he submitted it to the Pope said, you haven't said enough about the things that it's getting right. You haven't said enough about the good things that are drawing people to it. And had him write a chapter basically acknowledging, I get why you want to go this way and why that's like drawing your heart in this direction. And I'll tell you, it makes the document a lot more effective. It doesn't just say, here's why you're wrong. It says, good. The good you're trying to do, taking care of the poor, is good. It's beautiful. And it's good that you notice things like Christ feeds the masses before he preaches to them. But man does not live by bread alone. And so it's not adequate to subordinate the gospel to purely material ends. It ends up being a lot more effective when you can both validate what they are getting right, even if it's just at the level of good intentions, and then you raise the critique. So I think Ratzinger learned a lot from JP2, and I think he provided a lot as well. They are a beautiful pair. Really, really. And I think people will be studying that relationship as long as there's still a church, which will be, by the way, forever. Let's go to John. I don't have a location for John, but we're glad you're here, John. Go ahead with your comment or question for Joe Heschmeyer.
Yeah, hi. My comment was I always appreciated Pope John Paul and the fact that he really enforced the idea of the sanctity of the family, that divorce was not an option, that life is paramount. And I think those values transcended across not just Catholics, but a lot of Protestants too, where sometimes in our Protestant church we don't shout that out strong enough, often enough.
Oh, so you're a Protestant yourself, John?
Yeah, I go to Hope Lutheran Missouri Synod, and I mean, we're very, very close cousins. I mean, we believe in the true divinity of Christ in the Eucharist, but still, I listen to EWTN all the time, and I have followed the teachings of the Catholic Church quite a long time, and I've enjoyed the radio very, very much.
I've only got a minute left, so I'm going to let Joe give a response, but I'm sure you are not the only Protestant Christian in the world who thought John Paul was very helpful in those regards. Yeah, amen. I think that's brilliant. And if you want more on that, there's an apostolic exhortation John Paul II wrote called Familiaris Consortio. And in paragraphs 83 and 84 of that, he directly delves into this really tough issue of divorce and remarriage and things like, can divorced and remarried people receive the Eucharist? And so, this is a magisterial document at the level of an apostolic exhortation that really very clearly provides a strong witness to the gospel truth, and in both recognizing the humanity of the people involved and the dignity and sacredness of the Eucharist as well. John, I really appreciate that call. It makes me very, very happy. I think that would have made Pope John Paul himself very, very happy to hear that. And it is one of the services that the Catholic Church can do when she's on her game is speak for not just for the special particular revelations, but also to the general moral problems that society gets itself into. So thank you. Joe, I'm very grateful that you came. I know you joined me in thanking the Lord wholeheartedly for the life and ministry of Pope John Paul II and in praying for his intercession for the whole world today on his feast day.
Amen. Buona festa, John Paul II.
Buona festa. I know what language that is. That's Italian. I'm going to add that to my Santo Subito. Now I got 2 Italian phrases.
There you go.
Now I need something for eat. I need someone. What is there? Anything?
Manja.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I already knew that one, Joe. All right. Coming up, game show. Carlo Broussard. Don't go anywhere. Get your pencils ready. Right after this on Catholic Answers Live. Yeah, a little bit of game show music. That means it's time for the Catholic Answers Game Show, which we call the Catholic Answers Game Show. I am Cy Kellett, your game show host. And as often happens on the very best episodes of the game show, our special guest is Carlo Broussard. Hello, Carlo.
Hey, hey, hey.
Thanks for coming in for the game show.
Oh, it's great to be here. It's been a while since I've been on the game show.
Well, we haven't. There's going to be a little discussion of why that is.
Okay.
We haven't. Well, our guests, let's just say our guests or our contestants today, we owe some apologies to. There's maybe been a couple times when we messed up and the game show didn't happen. So please don't take that personally, Carlo.
I think I may have been responsible for one of those times.
I don't think
messed up on the schedule or something, right?
I don't know about that. I remember that time, but anyways, we'll introduce our guests. But first of all, we want you to play along at home, and a great time to get a piece of paper, a pencil, gather the family around the kitchen table, and make sure you wake up Grandma and Grandpa, because it is time for the Catholic Answers Game Show, and you can keep score at home. We have two we have two contestants, and they are Alicia and Angel. We're going to start with Alicia. She is contestant number 1. Which we use an elaborate system to decide who's contestant number 1 and number 2. Who's ever on the phone first is contestant number 1. Alicia, you there with us?
Yes, I am.
Well, okay, I'm going to start with an apology to you. I don't know how many times, but there have been several times you were scheduled to be on the game show, and then we canceled it. I'm sorry about that, Alicia.
No, it's all good. I'm excited to be here now.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And where are you, and what's interesting about you?
I'm in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, cool.
Catholic Answers Live was a huge part of my coming into the faith a few years ago.
Beautiful.
And we also have a baby on the way.
Oh, congratulations. That's a lot of good stuff.
you.
All right, so if you get a lot of answers wrong, though, that is going to really speak ill of Catholic Answers Live because we didn't teach you properly.
I'll blame it on the pregnancy, right?
Oh, that's a good. I've always liked that, how women can blame it on the pregnancy, whatever is happening. Our second guest, I don't know why I keep saying that. Contestant number 2 is Angel. Angel, you there with us?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me just tell you what happened. Alicia, what happened to Angel. He actually came into the studio one day to do the game show with us, and we had canceled it earlier in the week, and none of us called him to tell him that the game show was canceled.
That was not my fault. I was not involved.
You had nothing to do with that, Carlo. Sorry about that, Angel.
Not a problem.
But I think the day that you came, we actually gave you some prizes just to be like, sorry, didn't you leave with some prizes?
Yes, it was actually a great benefit of being able to go there in person and be able to walk away with prizes.
There you
and
go.
not actually have to be on the game show.
Yeah, well, today you're going to have to earn your
That's
prizes.
right.
Angel,
Sounds
where
good.
are you and what's interesting about you?
Sure. So I'm currently in San Antonio, Texas, but I would say what's interesting about me is that 4 weeks ago, my family and I lived in San Diego, in North County, as a matter of fact, and we just recently made the trek over here to San Antonio. It's been an amazing blessing for our family, and we just live life one day at a time, enjoying all of God's blessings.
Praise
Awesome.
God for that. That's a very strange thing. I've never heard of anyone
I'm
doing that.
glad he said
Leaving-
4 weeks ago, because I was thinking, man, did you fly all the way over here?
Yeah,
for
right.
the
No,
game
he was
show?
here. But have any of you guys ever heard of a person leaving California to go to Texas? I've never heard of it. This must be the first one. All right. Well, thank you both. I'm going to go over the game show rules right now for those playing at home with the family, and for you, Alicia and Angel, and for Carlo, because he forgets them.
Indeed, I do.
There are 3 rounds in the game show. The last round is called Final Judgment. To make it to Final Judgment, you have to win the first 2 rounds. The person who makes it to Final Judgment will get 7 true or false questions, and I will go over the prizes for the final for Final Judgment when you get there. The first 2 rounds, each contestant will be given 3 multiple choice questions. At the end of those 2 rounds, we will add up the scores, and whoever has the most points goes on, as I said, to Final Judgment. If it's a tie, we've got the tiebreaker right in front of us in these 2 boxes that the people on the internet can see. Because Alicia is contestant number 1, she will pick box A or box B, and we'll read whatever it says in there, and that will tell us what to do for Alicia's Final Judgment. Are all of those rules clear to both of you?
Yes.
I thought there was something missing, Si.
Oh, there is something missing. Yeah, there are. You get after lifelines in rounds 1 and 2. There are no after lifelines used or available during your final judgment. It's like the real final judgment. And so you got to use them up before you get there. And they are this. Each question, multiple choice question, has 3 answers. If you're not quite sure, you can ask Carlo to eliminate one of the 2 wrong answers. That'll leave you a 50-50 choice. Okay, so once that's used, it's gone. The other one, you can ask Carlo just to give you the answer. And when that one's used up, it is gone. So you can use them in round 1 or round 2, but once you've used it, you don't get it back. Everybody clear?
Yes.
Crystal.
All right, and that is all the rules, right?
I think Angel knows what's coming next.
Oh, I think. He came all the way into the studio for the game show. I think he knows how it's played. Yes, when Carlo gives you the correct answer, he has to do so in Latin.
Piggy Latin.
Pig Latin, that is. All right. So I think we are ready to begin.
We're going to see if my Latin studies over the past few months is going to help my
Pig Latin. I don't know if Latin studies helps Pig Latin. Okay, Alicia, you are contestant number 1. By the way, if you get to the last question of round 2 and you haven't used your second lifeline, that is, Carlo has to give you the answer in Pig Latin, I'm just going to force you to use it, okay? Both of you?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, here we go.
Sounds good.
Gather the family, get that pencil, get that piece of paper. Here we go with the Catholic Answers game show. Question number 1.
Oh, one more instruction. Remember, you got to read the question twice.
I will read the question twice. Please allow me to do that before answering so that those playing at home get a chance to hear the question twice. Contestant number 1, Alicia, your first question. By the way, I should have said this too. We have a whole bunch of John Paul questions in the first section because it's his feast day today. So happy feast day to Pope John Paul II.
Pray for us.
These are all a bunch of Pope John Paul II questions. Here's question 1. Which of the following encyclicals was not written by Pope John Paul II? A. Pacem in Terris. B. Veritatis Splendor. Or C. Evangelium Vitae. Once again, which of the following encyclicals was not written by Pope John Paul II? A. Pacem in Terris. B. Veritatis Splendor. Or C. Evangelium Vitae.
I'm going to say B.
Oh, that's unfortunate,
gotcha,
Alicia.
the first
Yeah,
one.
Veritatis Splendor was written by Pope St. John Paul II in 1993. It was his encyclical on the Church's role in moral teachings and giving us sort of a theological and philosophical exposition of moral theology and philosophy, basically. Pacem in Terris, letter A, was the correct answer here. That was the encyclical not written by Pope St. John Paul II. That was written by John the 23rd in 1963 on the rights and obligations of individuals and of the state, as well as proper relations between states. And then, of course, Evangelium Vitae, that was Pope St. John Paul II's encyclical in 1995, The Gospel of Life.
Started to write off with one with a bunch of obscure Latin documents. So you're welcome for that, Alicia. No. You're welcome for that.
Good try, Alicia.
All right. Contestant number 2, Angel, here is your first question. Pope John Paul gave his teaching, now called The Theology of the Body, A, in an encyclical, B, at his weekly audiences, C, in a book called Fides et Ratio. Once again, the question is, Pope John Paul gave his teaching, now called The Theology of the Body, A, in an encyclical, B, at his weekly audiences, or C, in a book called Fides et Ratio.
I'm going to go with B.
Oh, that is correct. At his weekly audiences. Did you know that, or were you just guessing?
No, I did know that. I was starting to study theology of the body, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it went between September 5th, 1979 to November 28th, 1984.
On each Wednesday. And then nobody really even noticed that much until some people went back and read them and were
together,
like, wait a second, this is kind of good. I remember George Weigel said he got them all together and just read through them and tried to just write them out in like common language, what the Pope was saying in his kind of Pope language. And that's and then he when he got it all together, he was like, this is good. And he published it as a book. All right, question number 2. Alicia, here's your question number 2. I'll read it twice. Pope John Paul was the first non-Italian pope. By the way, I got to tell you, Carlo told me to get rid of this question because he said it's too obscure. But I'm sorry. I realized this is one you told me to get rid of. Remember?
Yeah, I was just making sure that you actually kept it on purpose and that I didn't make a mistake in the notes here.
Because I wanted Angel to win. No, that's not why. I didn't know who was getting what. Pope John Paul II was the first non-Italian pope in 1,237 years. Well, excuse me, that's A, 1,237 years. B, 871 years. Or C, 455 years. Once again, Pope John Paul was the first non-Italian pope in A, 1,237 years. B, 871 years. C, 455 years.
Oh my. Let's say B again.
Wait, you don't want to use your lifeline? That's what you like. If you said, "Oh my," that would make me think, "Oh, she's going to use a lifeline." But you don't want to use a lifeline?
Okay. Yeah, I'll eliminate an answer. That would be great.
All right, we're going to eliminate an answer?
Yeah, eliminate one wrong answer.
All right, let's eliminate B, 871 years.
So, oh, good thing we did that. All right, so it's either he was the first non-Italian pope in like more than 1,000 years, 1,237, or 455 years.
I'll say 455 years.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Good job, Alicia. Whew.
Man.
That lifeline helped, huh?
Yes, it did.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Well, she said, "Oh my," and I'm like, "Well, that's a lifeline, right?" All right.
That's an obscure question, son.
I know.
Come
Carlo
on,
told me to get rid of that question, but I was like, "It's John Paul. We're gonna have a little fun." All right. So here's your question number 2, Angel. Pope John Paul got lots of criticism because he once kissed A, a copy of the Quran, B, Fidel Castro, C, a statue of the Buddha. Once again, Pope John Paul got lots of criticism because he once kissed A, a copy of the Quran, B, Fidel Castro, or C, a statue of the Buddha.
I'm going to go with A, the copy of the Quran.
That is correct.
I'm glad it wasn't Fidel Castro.
And I don't think I have much comments to give on that one.
No. What
Moving
can you
right
say?
along.
What can you say? Here's a comment. He was Pope for 26 years.
There you go.
You're not going to get them all right. All right. I thought that one was going to be a little harder than it was, though. All right. Here's your... What's that? He got that one right. Oh, you need me to take a break? Yes. Darren's doing pantomime during the game show. It's got me all confused. We have to take a quick break. It's the game show. We are in our last question of round 1 for each of our contestants. Oh, no, we're going to question number 2 of round 1 for Angel. When we come back right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Miss a show? Make sure to catch up by downloading the podcast, available online at Catholic.com.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
I do listen, and I love EWTN. My mother loved EWTN. It's just a wonderful way, and I thank you for what you're doing, the courage that you have for telling us how it is with Jesus, God, Mary, all of it. We have to get back to something in this country, or we're doomed.
EWTN, helping people grow in their love and understanding of God.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. I should have said Catholic Answers Live. I should have said welcome back to the Catholic Answers game show. I'm
There you
Cy
go,
Kellett,
man.
your game show host. You got to get that in there.
So last time Darren messed up on the music. This time you messed up on the title.
Well, as we were just discussing with our contestants during the break, there's a common theme that runs through almost every episode of the game show, which is I have no idea where I am at any given time. Like I'm always looking for somebody to tell me what question's next. And all right, but we are on question number 3. I was right with my first impression. We're on question number 3 and of round 1. This is your last question of round 1. Okay, Alicia?
Sounds good.
All right, it's another Pope John Paul question. We're almost through the Pope John Paul questions, Alicia. Pope John Paul II attended A, the First Vatican Council, B, the Second Vatican Council, C, neither, because he lived in communist Poland. Once again, Pope John Paul II attended A, the First Vatican Council, B, the Second Vatican Council, or C, neither, because he lived in communist Poland.
C.
What'd she say? She said B?
Second Vatican Council. She got it right.
Oh.
She said B as in boy.
I just didn't hear it. And I was, so you said B, the Second Vatican Council. Congratulations.
No, I'm sorry. I said C as in cat. That was wrong.
Oh.
But thank you.
What honesty, man.
Wait.
What honesty.
Okay.
I think we got to give her that for being honest.
Okay.
Because I heard B as in boy.
I'm giving you a book right now. Put this on the list of prizes. Just for honesty. You're getting an honesty book. And this is the book that was sitting next to me, so I'm giving it to you. Light from Darkness. 9 times the Catholic Church was in turmoil and came out stronger than before. The new book from Steve Weidenkopf. It is yours as an honesty bonus. An honesty bonus prize.
Thank you so much.
Wow. Now, aren't you ashamed of yourself, Angel, for even trying to win this now that we know that Alicia is virtually a saint?
I do have my head really low.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So your third question was, because the Second Vatican Council was the answer to that. Name all the documents of the Second Vatican Council.
Wow.
All right, I changed that slightly to help Alicia out. But I'll go back to the original question. Sorry, that's not really your question. Last question of round 1. Pope John Paul II was shot, A, on the Feast of Our Lady of Fatima, B, on the Feast of the Divine Mercy, C, on the Feast of Saints Peter and Paul. Once again, Pope John Paul II was shot, A, on the Feast of Our Lady of Fatima, B, on the Feast of the Divine Mercy, C, on the Feast of Saints Peter and Paul.
That would be A, on the Feast of Our Lady of Fatima.
Wow.
You even pronounced Fatima right.
He did not hesitate at all. Good job, Angel.
Nicely done.
Indeed. Amen.
Nicely done. All right, so where are we? You're ahead by Angel is ahead by 2 after round 1 because the questions that we gave Alicia were horrible, and Carlo told me not to use them, but I used them. You guys ready for round 2?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Oh man. All right, Alicia. I don't know how you got all these hard questions. Alicia, the souls in heaven, A, are given faith in proportion to how they lived. B, do not have faith. C, are given a superabundance of faith. You got to think about this one. It's a tricky one. Alicia, the souls in heaven, A, are given faith in proportion to how they lived. B, do not have faith. Or C, are given a superabundance of faith.
B.
Wait, I don't know what letter she said. Was that B?
C as in cat.
Oh, bummer. Yeah, it's actually B as in boy, Alicia. They do not have faith in the beatific vision. You know, St. Paul teaches us in 2 Corinthians 5:7 that we walk by faith and not by sight, applying to our Christian walk with the Lord in this life. But we're told in sacred scripture, particularly St. John in 1 John 3:2, that when we come into the presence of the Lord, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. So notice in this life, we're not walking by sight, but in the next life, when we get to heaven, we have sight. And that is to say, we will see God's essence. It's a sort of an intellectual vision. Pope Benedict XII, in his Papal Bull Benedictus Deus in 1336 defined the beatific vision as this intuitive vision without the mediation of any creature, sort of a direct intellectual knowledge and union with God's divine essence. And also, too, St. Thomas Aquinas likes to quote 1 Corinthians 13:12. He liked to quote that in past tense, right? We now see in a glass darkly, St. Paul says, but then face to face. So now it's dark, this knowledge of faith. We're trusting, like we're making that act of faith. But then in the beatific vision, we're going to see God face to face. So it's a direct vision and no longer having to walk by faith.
I like it.
Yeah, so faith is only for this life to lead us to that vision. So faith, hope, and charity, right?
Yeah.
Faith is assenting to that which is not seen.
Yeah.
But in the beatific vision, we see, so no more faith. Hope is looking forward to the promises to be fulfilled, trusting in the promises. When we get in the beatific vision, the promise is fulfilled. We attained our ultimate goal, so no longer any hope. However, charity, the greatest of all of these, as St. Paul teaches us in 1 Corinthians 13, remains and is actually perfected.
So it's just love.
Just love.
All right. Where am I now? Oh, the first question of round 2 for you, Angel. And Angel, I am going to just suggest to you that you don't have to take my suggestion, that you use your second lifeline on this one. The communion. This is a good one because we're coming up on All Saints and All Souls days. And so here's a communion of saints question for you. The communion of saints refers to A, the canonized saints who can be honored at Mass. B, all of the saints in heaven, whether they have been canonized or not. Or C, all of those who have been made children of God by Christ, whether in heaven, on earth, or in purgatory. Once again, the communion of saints refers to A, the canonized saints who can be honored at Mass. B, all of the saints in heaven, whether they have been canonized or not. Or C, all of those who have been made children of God by Christ, whether in heaven, on earth, or in purgatory.
I would like to use my lifeline.
Oh, which one would you like to use?
I would like to use the one with Pig Latin.
Carlo, please give him the correct answer in
here
Pig
we
Latin.
go. Got to get revved up here. All right, here we go. Lae, foe, hoste, hoe, have he, imbe, ademe, hiltrinche, foe, adge, yibe, riske.
I don't know if I can go on with this.
Nie, evenhe, noe, earthe, roe, nie, ergatoripe.
Hey, listen, I don't.
I did it, man.
I know, but I don't think your mic was all the way up. You want him to do it again for you?
Please?
All right, which was it, A, B, or C?
C.
C, the communion of saints refers to all of those who have been made children of God by Christ, whether in heaven, on earth, or in purgatory. Alicia, your second question. Your second question of the second round.
Darren forgot the noise. Ding.
Oh,
there you go.
Okay, so it's official. You got that.
Good job, Angel.
Alicia, the Apostle Paul was A, a Sadducee, B, a temple priest, or C, a Pharisee. Alicia, once again, the Apostle Paul was A, a Sadducee, B, a temple priest, or C, a Pharisee.
I'm going to say he was a Pharisee.
Yes. Good job, Alicia.
No, but she doesn't get credit because she didn't say the letter. You have to say C, a Pharisee. No, we're not giving her that.
She was confusing us with the letters for the past
Yeah, right. We couldn't make out what letter she was saying.
The answer.
Yeah, so she's all right. Pharisee. Was he really? Paul was a Pharisee. I thought the Pharisees were bad.
He says that in Philippians 3:4-6. He says, if any other man thinks he has reason for confidence in the flesh, I have more, circumcised on the 8th day, of the people of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew born of Hebrews. As to the law, a Pharisee. As to zeal, a persecutor of the church. As to righteousness under the law, blameless. So as a Jew, he was a Pharisee, and he was trained within the Pharisaical school and traditions. So he was not sad, you see. I know we've heard that over and over again because he believed in the bodily resurrection at the end of time as a Jew.
All right, nicely done, Alicia. Let's go to question number 2 for Angel. Angel, your second question. Which of the following is true about St. Paul? Which of the following is true about St. Paul? A, he was a powerful healer, so much so that people could heal the sick just using objects that had touched Paul. B, he was a preacher, but unlike the other apostles, he had no healing ministry. Or C, he taught that only the sacraments could heal. Which of the following was true about Paul? A, he was a powerful healer, so much so that people could heal the sick just using objects that had touched Paul. B, he was a preacher, but unlike the other apostles, he had no healing ministry. Or C, he taught that only the sacraments could heal.
I'd like to use my other lifeline if I could.
All right, that's a 50-50.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to eliminate B as in boy. He was a preacher, but unlike the other apostles, he had no healing ministry.
So you want me to read the two that are left?
Yes, please.
All right. A, he was a powerful healer, so much so that people could heal the sick just using objects that had touched Paul. Or C, we got to go to a break?
Don't look it up, Angel.
Or C, he taught that only the sacraments could heal. Go ahead.
Hey.
Yeah!
All right, we'll find out whether... Oh, I guess we don't find out whether that was right or wrong. We already know. That was right. We'll be right back.
Sorry.
With more of the Catholic Answers game show with the ever-excitable Carlo Broussard right after this.
Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you. Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
It's very hard not to, I think this is the technical term, boogie down when that music is playing. It's very hard not to boogie down.
Are you an old man?
Yeah, I can still boogie down. All right. I want to go back to that question because we got it right in before the break, and I know that there's probably something you want to say about it. Which of the following is true about St. Paul? And it turned out the answer was he was a powerful healer, so much so that people could heal the sick just using objects that had touched Paul.
Yeah, that actually comes from Acts chapter 19, verses 11 through 12, where Luke records, God did extraordinary miracles by the hands of Paul so that handkerchiefs or aprons were carried away from his body to the sick, and diseases left them, and the evil spirits came out of them. So we have a biblical evidence there of a second-class relic, right?
Yeah. Right.
God using the handkerchiefs or aprons of Paul to drive out demons and heal sick people.
Yeah.
So the Catholic practice of venerating relics is not that
weird,
odd of a thing.
No.
Right
But,
back there in the first century.
But you were saying at the break that he also healed someone who died.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact chapter. I should have looked it up during the break, but it's in the book of Acts where Luke's telling us how Paul is preaching into the night, and like there was this young guy sitting in the window. He fell asleep, fell out the window, died. Paul goes down, resurrects him, then goes back and keeps on preaching, man.
But doesn't that make you feel good that here is an apostle of Jesus Christ and somebody fell asleep during his preaching? Because doesn't that make you feel better as a speaker? Like,
Indeed,
because
yes,
every
it
now and
does.
then
I
you
never
look
thought
out
about
there,
that, yeah.
and it's not exactly the crowd is not exactly enthused. And Paul killed someone. He was so boring.
Yeah, sure did. He sure did. Yeah, I will keep that one aside in my back pocket, brother.
All right, yeah. That'll make you feel better sometime.
Indeed.
All right, here's the last question of round 2 for Alicia. Alicia, I'm going to read it twice to you. The title, Theotokos, or God-bearer, was used to describe Mary, A, by only one of the early church fathers, B, by none of the church fathers. It was a later development. Or C, by many of the early church fathers. Has Alicia used her Pig Latin one yet?
I would love to use my Pig Latin.
Yeah. I got to read it one more time, and then we'll get to the correct answer in Pig Latin. Yes, by law, you have to use it. So thank you, Alicia. The title Theotokos, or God-bearer, was used to describe Mary, A, by only one of the early church fathers, B, by none of the church fathers, it's a later development, or C, by many early church fathers. Carlo, can you give us the correct answer in Igpe Adenle?
All right, so first word of all three of them is by, so I can get by on by. Pun intended. Oh, yeah, baby. All right, so here we go. By, inime, foe, hate, earlie, churchte, a father's fe.
A father's fe. Oh, that is good Pig Latin. A father's fe.
Wait, no, not a father's fe. Author's fe. There we go.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Author's fe. All right. Did any of that make any sense to you, Alicia? Because I'll just say it in English if there was any problem.
See, many of the church fathers.
Yes! Good job, Alicia.
Did she get her sound effect?
She did.
She did?
I was
Okay.
overriding it because I got excited again.
All right, because we do not want anyone leaving without getting their sound effect. Okay, so this is your last question of round 2, Angel. The bishops of the Orthodox churches are A, not successors of the apostles as Catholic bishops are, B, are successors of the apostles, or C, are successors, I cannot read this, I'm so sorry. I got to put my glasses on. Are successors only of St. Paul, but not of St. Peter. I'm going to read that again because that was horrible. The bishops of the Orthodox churches are A, not successors of the apostles, as Catholic bishops are. B, successors of the apostles. Or C, successors only of St. Paul, but not of St. Peter.
I'm going to say B.
Good job. Paragraph 1399 in the Catechism. The Eastern churches are not in full communion with the Catholic Church, celebrate the Eucharist with great love. These churches, although separated from us, yet possess true sacraments, above all, by apostolic succession, the priesthood and the Eucharist, whereby they are still joined to us in closest intimacy. So, good job, Angel.
Great job, both of you. We are through rounds 1 and 2.
Yes,
so now we have to ask the supercomputer to add up the scores. And while the supercomputer is adding up the scores, I will just say that was very fine rounds. And Alicia, I gave you terrible questions. Carlo told me not to, but I gave you terrible questions. So has the supercomputer added them up? Yeah, Darren says yes. He's pretending along with me that we have a supercomputer. Thank you, Darren, for playing along. The problem here is that Angel didn't get any wrong. He got 100%. And Alicia, that means that you will not be going on to your final judgment. So congratulations that you can live another day and have that baby of yours. But we're going to give you some great prizes because you, not only were you a great contestant and a lot of fun to talk with, but we kept canceling on you before. So we've already given you, because of your saintly honesty, like you could have actually had another correct answer, but you didn't because you told us the truth. Light from Darkness, 9 times the Catholic Church was in turmoil and came out stronger than before. That's the new book from Steve Weidenkopf for your honesty. We're also going to give you Behold Your Mother, a biblical and historical defense of the Marian doctrines from Tim Staples.
And that's fitting because one of her questions was regarding the Theotokos. So Mary.
Exactly.
And she got it right.
And also, just because he's so great, and we want you to have the full Carlo Broussard collection, we'll give you all of Carlo Broussard's books, which he will now name. Name them, Carlo. See if you can name all of your books.
Prepare the Way. Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church.
1.
Meeting the Protestant Challenge. How to Answer 50 Biblical Objections to Catholic Beliefs. And Purgatory is for Real. Good news about the afterlife for those who aren't perfect yet.
Nope, you were supposed to give those in Pig Latin, so you get no credit for that. But Alicia, you're going to get those 4 books. The one from Steve Weidenkopf, the one from Tim Staples, and the 3 from Carlo.
Thank you.
Awesome, Alicia. Thank you so much.
It was great getting to talk with you. And when does the baby due?
March 8th.
Wow.
March
awesome.
8th.
God
Oh,
bless
God
you.
bless you. That's great. You're going to have a fun summer.
Thank you.
Yeah, just great. All right, well, thank you very much, Alicia. And now we are stuck with Angel. Angel, I don't know, I said that probably the wrong way. That's probably the wrong way. Do you feel like you're ready to face your final judgment?
I am as ready as possible.
All right, that's good. I hope
All I got to say is if Angel gets less than 5 questions right, you best be sure to give him at least 5 books.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like Alicia.
Because Alicia got 5 books. Well, but no, she only got 4 books because the 5th one was because of her saintly honesty.
Okay.
And so
Although Angel did get his books when he came here.
Oh, that's right. Angel's already got a bunch of books. As a matter of fact, goodbye, Angel. You're not even
shipping.
What's that?
You don't have to worry about shipping.
Oh, yeah, we saved on shipping. Yeah, because you had to bring them with you. All right, so we're about to go to the final round or final judgment. This is your final judgment, and the final judgment works this way. 1, you have no afterlife lines. You just got to answer these questions yourself. Each question is a true or false question. If you get it correct, you get the prize that it comes with, which I will tell you before I ask you each question. If you get all 7 correct, you get a bonus, which I believe the bonus is a free course in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics, which everyone on earth is talking about. The Catholic Answers School of Apologetics, as we've been wanting it for more than 20 years here at Catholic Answers, and it has exceeded all expectations. People from countries all around the world have taken apologetics courses, and Carlo's got a new one coming out about...
Yeah, it was just last week or 2 weeks ago. Can't remember. I'm lost. I was in the studio filming for our course on the saints and defending the intercession of the saints. So I'm looking forward to that coming out. I don't know when that will be released, but it's in production. So praise God for that.
All right, so I have to read a little something that I have failed to read thus far, and it's very important, and then we will get to your final judgment. I wonder if they're going to do an ad before my final judgment. Wouldn't that be awful? You stand before the Lord, they're like, hang on, Si, we got to do a quick ad, and then we'll get to your final judgment. It's Black Cat Friday. What does that mean? It means that for 12 hours, all of our 20 Answers books and ebooks are $1 each. 47 titles in all with ebooks included. That's 94 chances to save 75% on these great books and ebooks. But act quickly. These sale prices disappear at 6 p.m. Pacific time. That's a little more than an hour away. Go now and save. Black Cat Friday going on now at shop.catholic.com.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
We have a big problem. Our culture is dying, and souls are in danger of being lost. The answer is conversion to Jesus Christ in His church. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a Catholic organization, and we have hundreds of teams spreading the good news throughout the country. But we need your help. The harvest is great, but the laborers are few. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
What have you always wanted to know about the Vatican? Well, I'm your Vatican insider, and I answer that question when I bring you the news about the Pope, Vatican City, and much more. I answer your wonderful questions about the Church. I share insights and stories told by my amazing guests from a broad spectrum of church ministries.
Vatican Insider with Joan Lewis. Saturday night, 9 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to the Catholic Answers Game Show. I'm your game show host, Cy Kellett. Our guest, Carla Broussard, apologist here at Catholic Answers. It's almost November, so you probably should mention just one more time what you're doing in November, because I think it's great. You and you've teamed up with the St. Philip Institute down in Texas, and tell them what you're going to do.
Yeah, so for every Monday in November, I'm going to be giving a webinar in collaboration with the St. Philip Institute out of Diocese of Tyler, Texas. Ran by Stacy Trasenko. So she and her team will be hosting the webinar. I will be giving the talks, and after each of the talks for each of the Mondays, we're going to have some Q&A. And basically, the title of the webinar is Family Night Apologetics. The idea is to, as you say, Si, gather up the family, right? Mom and Dad and Grandma and Grandpa, and all the kids. And it's going to be each of the nights will be nights of apologetics, where we're going to do a Catholic introduction to Catholic apologetics, explaining what apologetics is, the various kinds of apologetics, the various people we're engaging with, tips for defending the faith, as well as samples of the various kinds of apologetics. So what do we say when we're talking to atheists or agnostics, when they might say science disproves God, maybe? Or what do we say to someone who doesn't think objective truth exists, that everything's relative, right, concerning truth? We're also going to look at how to respond to skeptics who doubt the historical reliability of the Gospels, the divinity of Jesus, his resurrection, as well as those Catholic distinctives. When our Protestant brothers and sisters ask that age-old question, where's that in the Bible, right? Yeah. And challenging us on certain Catholic beliefs and relative to certain passages in the Bible. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Once again, every Monday in November, 5 Mondays, and they can go to stphilipinstitute.org/events, click on the Family Night Apologetics with Carla Broussard, and they can register online.
stphilipinstitute.org /events. All right. You ready for your final judgment? Angel, that's you. I didn't mean Carla.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right, Angel. All right. Here's how it works.
He is the angel of judgment.
I'm going to give you a true/false question. If you get it right, you get the prize, and we'll do 7 of those. If you get all 7 of them right, you get a bonus prize, which is a free course in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics. I think in your case, we might just have you teach a free course in the Catholic Answers because you're doing so well. All right. You ready? True or false?
Let's go.
All right. True or false, Angel? The Holy Spirit is not the Father is not the Son, and the Son is not the Holy Spirit. Once again, true or false? The Holy Spirit is not the Father is not the Son, and the Son is not the Holy Spirit.
That is true.
Good job, Angel. Yeah, the Catechism puts it exactly like that, Si, in paragraph 254. Father, Son, Holy Spirit are not simply names designating modalities of the divine being, for they are really distinct from one another. He is not the Father who is the Son, nor is the Son he who is the Father, nor is the Holy Spirit he who is the Father or the Son, articulating the real distinction between each of the 3 persons. They are one and identical in reality, in being, in substance. They're all 3 identical to what we call the divine essence or the divine nature, the divine being, but they are distinct, really, in relation to each other.
And by the way, you were playing for Purgatory is for Real on that one. I forgot to mention, as I always do, I forgot to mention the book before you went. So congratulations, you just won Purgatory is for Real. Good news about the afterlife for those who aren't perfect yet by Carla Broussard. On this one, you're playing for Light and Darkness. 9 times the Catholic Church was in turmoil and came out stronger than before. The new book by Steve Weidenkopf. I got a chance to read it, and it's great. It is a very fine book. So I hope you win it. Here's your true or false question. Oh, by the way, it's about a controversy because the book is about controversies. True or false, Angel? The investiture controversy involved Greek patriarchs refusing to allow the Pope to appoint bishops. Once again, true or false, Angel? The investiture controversy involved Greek patriarchs refusing to allow the Pope to appoint bishops.
True.
Oh, that's a difficult
It was a tricky one. I'm sorry about that.
Unless you know what that controversy is.
I should have given that one to Alicia. She was getting all the
Oh, that would have been terrible.
Yeah, because that was tricky, and I gave her all the bad questions.
Well,
I don't know how that happened. I still feel bad about that.
Too bad, Angel, because the book that Cy was offering you actually deals with this controversy in chapter 4. Maybe you could offer it on the next one, right? But rather than
because then I'd learn about it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Rather than the controversy involving the Pope and Greek patriarchs, it was the Pope and the state in medieval Europe in the 11th century over who has the authority to appoint bishops and abbots of monasteries. And so that was the nature of the controversy.
Yep, all those German princes. Light and Darkness is a fantastic book. And
Light from Darkness.
Light from Darkness, excuse me. Fantastic book, and you are not getting it. Let's go to number 3. Wait, what was I giving away? Oh, Jimmy Akin's book, Daily Defense. Do you have that one yet?
Well, actually, Sai, you gave it to me last time I was there.
Okay, so you're playing for Light and Darkness again. Because I wasn't sure if we gave you Jimmy Akin's book. So Light in Darkness. You can play for it again. True or false? During the Roman persecutions, those who caved into Roman pressure, we might call them the lapsi, were never allowed back into communion. Once again, during the Roman persecutions, those who caved to Roman pressure were never allowed back into communion.
False.
Very good. Excellent, Angel. Yeah, so there were some who were arguing that they should not be allowed back into communion, both during the persecution of Decius, at the time the Roman priest Novatian, later came to be known as Novatianism, as well as in the persecution of Diocletian, which took the form of Donatism, as saying that those of the lapsi who have caved into the persecution should not be allowed back into communion. But during the persecution of Decius, St. Cyprian of Carthage was one who championed the idea that they should be allowed back into communion after long periods of penance. And then during the persecution of Diocletian, and the synods of the 4th century had some canons to reject that idea that the Donatists were proposing.
All right, I got to get moving because I feel like I'm risking not getting all 7 questions in. So true or false? Oh, this time we are playing for Things the Saints Never Said, a book from our colleague Trent Horn, Things the Saints Never Said. We have to give them away because no one will buy them. True or false? Jesus chose...
That's admitted by Trent, by the way.
Jesus chose only Jewish men for his apostles. True or false, Angel? Jesus chose only Jewish men for his apostles.
True.
Great job.
Wow.
Ain't got much to say about that one.
All right.
Nope.
All 12 men,
Yeah.
all Jews.
Yep. Even St. Luke? No, just kidding. St. Luke wasn't an apostle.
That is correct.
And but was St. Luke Jewish, or we just don't know whether he was Jewish? Like
Well, it's my understanding he was a Gentile.
He was a Gentile. Okay. All right, so let's go do the next one. I'm going to have you play for a brand new book, a book that I'm very, very excited about. I don't even think it's out yet. You'll probably be the first person who gets it. It's called Revolt Against Reality. It's coming out either, if it's not out now, it's out soon. It's from our good friend Gary Machuda, who is just a superstar. Gary is great. And one of my favorite people in the apologetics world. And Revolt Against Reality, that's a perfect book for our age. So I'm just super happy that this book's coming out. I'm glad you're going to get it if you get this right. True or false, Jesus had the beatific vision even when he was in Mary's womb. True or false, Angel, Jesus had the beatific vision even when he was in Mary's womb.
True.
Dang, no pause on that.
Good job. To save time, I'm just going to direct all of our listeners, Cy, to Tim Staples' article, Did Jesus Christ Have the Beatific Vision from the Moment of His Conception? At his website, timstaples.com. And he documents all of the magisterial references, scripture quotes, reasoning from St. Thomas Aquinas, etc. So, great article.
And it's very good news because it means that we can all be saved,
Amen.
by the way.
Amen.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to number 6. And say a book, Darren. What should he be playing for now? Because early church was the Catholic Church. Darren says it. You don't have that one, right? Early church was the Catholic Church?
I do not.
All right, true or false? Detraction is the sin of lying to hurt the reputation of another. True or false? Detraction is the sin of lying to hurt the reputation of another.
True.
Oh, that's a tricky one, brother.
I was afraid of that one.
Yeah, that's calumny. So calumny is remarks contrary to the truth, as the Catechism defines in paragraph 2477, which harms the reputation of others, gives occasion for false judgments concerning them. Detraction, the Catechism defines as without objectively valid reason, discloses another's faults and failings to persons who did not know them. So the faults and the failings are true, but one is disclosing them to others without a valid reason. That's detraction. Calumny involves the lie.
It's the only sin against the truth in which the person tells the truth. Because it's a sin against the truth because it's a truth you shouldn't have told.
Right, yeah. That's
so
correct.
it's a violation of the proper use of the faculty of communication. But it's one in which you actually tell the truth.
Yeah.
Which I always like to remind people that's a sin, because if you don't know that, then you go, well, it's the truth. What I said is the truth. Yeah, well, there's a lot of truths you don't need to say about people. Just keep it to yourself.
There's consistency with using the faculty. You're not perverting the natural goal, end, or telos of the faculty.
Right.
But there is disharmony with prudential judgment there and respecting the character of the other individual, so it's an injustice to the person.
All right, I think we'll go, for question number 7, we'll have you play for the same book, the Catholic.
I was going to ask if we could.
Okay, well, then we can. Yes, the early church was the Catholic Church
by Joe Heschmeyer,
and that comes out when? We don't know, but it's coming out soon. Yeah. All right, true or false? Oh, man, this is... Why do I word them this way? True or false? One is not morally required to always choose the highest good. True or false, Angel? One is not morally required to always choose the highest good.
One is not always morally required.
You want me to read it again?
It's false.
Oh. Okay. So the answer is false. That's what you said. He said false.
Yes.
That's a tricky one, man.
I know. That's funny because when you were saying it, you worded it better than I did. I was like,
it's tricky because one could think, well, the highest good is God, and I need to always be choosing God in whatever I do.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, is that what you were thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. See, but what the question was getting at, Angel, is we're not morally required to always choose objectively the highest good whenever we're comparing particular goods. Like, for example, the church teaches that celibacy, religious life, giving up your life for the Lord and religious celibacy is objectively a higher good than even the good of marriage. But that doesn't mean everyone must choose that objectively speaking higher good, because God wills for some of us to choose the good of marriage, right?
Yeah.
Objectively speaking, praying is a greater good than eating ice cream, right? But if the Lord calls me to eat ice cream with all my kids after dinner, that's what I need to do. It would be wrong for me to go off to my room and kneel down and pray when my kids are around the dinner table ready to have their dessert after the Broussard meal.
Yeah.
Right?
I have never in my life eaten ice cream without praying. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. That's all that goes through my mind.
Amen.
All right. So I see what he was doing there. I think it was
depends on how you interpret the question.
Right. And so
if you interpret it the formal way, he got it right.
Yeah, because you always. Oh, look at that! The sound of you even got your sound effect.
Reversed it.
All right. Do I have a list anywhere that I can read to tell him everything that he's won? All right. You have won the following things: Purgatory is for Real from Carlo Broussard, Light from Darkness from Steve Weidenkopf, Things the Saints Never Said. Yeah, he won that one. Things the Saints Never Said from Trent Horn. Revolt Against Reality, the new book coming out from the great Gary Machuda. And The Early Church Was the Catholic Church, the new book coming out from our former friend and now colleague, Joe Heschmeyer.
But still friend.
You could say that if you want. All right. I think you did really well, Angel. How do you feel? Is he crying?
No, I'm so happy.
Oh, okay. I thought you might just gave up and went off to cry. You were so happy. All right. Thanks.
No.
Thanks, Angel.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, God bless you, brother. That
It
was a
was
lot
fun,
of fun.
man.
Thanks to our other contestant, Alicia, who was an awfully good sport when she got some stinker questions from me. But she did okay. She left with some loot as well. And as always, thank you to Carlo Broussard, who makes these game shows so much fun. Carlo, I love working with you.
I love working with you, Si. Thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate the kind words.
That does it for us. We'll see you next time, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.